Hello, my name is Bailey DeSepoli, and today I'm going to be talking about my final thoughts for this course. And the first thing that I really wanted to go over was what I felt that I gained. The first thing was my comfort level with technology increased exponentially. And I discovered new ways to communicate with my students and, new ways to present information to them. I also found new ways to assess students that kind of broke my older habits, and I gained better research habits. And I can now think a lot more critically about lesson planning. So, the first thing I wanted to talk about was technology. At the start of this class, I was not very good with technology. I guess I'm still pretty intermediate, but I definitely got more comfortable with things. Like I learned how to use Kaltura, which doesn't sound super advanced, but now like I was able to teach my boyfriend and a couple of my friends like how to use it when they needed to use it for projects for school. I also got better at using YouTube in order to like post my videos and get my videos to a different platform. I also got familiar with Storyboard and Blend Space in order to present my final project and the whole lesson plan that we did. So it was really interesting. I learned a lot of new stuff that I definitely did not think that I would. The next thing I wanted to talk about was communication and what kind of communication ideals were that in my head that were broken. Um, I kind of thought that when I would get into the classroom that I would just speak to the kids and I would hope they remember what I was saying and that when they would go home they would either have it written down, etc., etc. But I'm kind of starting to catch on that that's not a super reasonable thing to expect. And I went into Quizlet earlier in the semester and I learned a lot of new things with it because I thought that Quizlet was a pretty flat technology, but I learned a lot of new things. And one of the things was the classroom aspect to it. So the kids can log on at home and you can be assessing them from home. You can be giving them help from home. You can put little notes on it. And so, they can go home and you're communicating with them even though they're not in the classroom. Another thing about communication that I learned was cognitive overload, and that sometimes you are communicating too much to kids, and that you can really only put so much out there before children start to shut down, or before really anyone starts to shut down, and that you need to be very conscious of that when you're in the classroom. I also learned some new things about assessment. Really, it's not that I learned new things; it's that I thought about assessment in a very different way. I thought about how there are many different ways to assess children, and that I had really never considered that even though it's the same lesson, different kids can come to different conclusions about how to present the information to you. So instead of just simply handing kids tests, I could offer different sort of projects, whether the kids are artistic, or I could give an essay if the children like to write. Just depending on what the kid likes to do is how you should assess them. And I really had never thought about it like that until I came to this class. So another thing that I definitely gained from this class was narrowing down my research. Before I came to this class, I would just kind of throw things into a Google search and hope for the best, and that definitely did not always go super well. So I learned some ways to use like the UC library, and there's EBSCOhost, a couple other databases, and it really narrows your search down. And I know that you could type in like a few different things and you get exactly what you're looking for, when on Google you could be getting exactly what you're not looking for. The final thing that I learned, and a very, very important thing that I learned, was how intricate lesson planning is and how many things go into it. Um, there's so many things that you have to think about before you go into lesson planning. There's like the objective of it, the different kind of assessments, like how I talked about how there should be different ways that you assess children, and that you need to come up with backup plans, and you need to have like a rubric ready so that you assess the children fairly based on what they're doing, and that really a lesson plan is not as easy as slapping something down and coming in the next day. It needs to be thought out. There needs to be contingency plans, and to me, that was that was really important and something that I definitely took away from this class that is very positive. So, in short, I learned a lot about technology. I was a little bit closed off to it, but I did learn a lot. And I also learned things about cognitive overload and how to communicate with my students outside of the classroom. I found a different perspective on assessment, and I also found new ways to research, which is always helpful for a college student. And most importantly, I learned how to plan out my lessons a lot more detailed than I had originally thought I could. So, thank you for your time, and thank you for helping me gain some things.